So listen, folks, you know everything that we always want to talk about is how does an entrepreneur go from hello to yes? How does an entrepreneur work through all of their different gyrations and from one business to another to find the place where they could really, sit down and achieve that space of fulfillment, that like, wow, this is really what I wanted to do. This is my calling. This is how I could help make the world a better place. This is how I could create generational wealth. This is how I could create a legacy by really giving and serving other people. And, every once in a while, things just happen in our lives. And, for me, my son Riley has played basketball with another child. His name is Chase. And his dad and I have known each other for about 5 years. Very just like, hey, how you doing? What's going on kind of conversations. But along the way, we grew closer and closer. And today, this is a special treat for all you folks out there. I have with me Jordan Bazant. What's up, Jordan?
How are you
doing, brother?
Doing great.
Jordan Bazant, the story he's about to share with you is incredible. I've never really interviewed somebody like this, so I'm really excited about it. And just to be able to follow the journey and be able to follow where he's been, where is he now, and where he's going is pretty incredible. So once we get into all that, I'd love to be able to kind of share that part of the process. But before we get going, Jordan, where are you originally from?
From Berkeley Heights, New Jersey.
New Jersey's in the house, everybody.
Yeah, north central Jersey. So,
yes. So is that where you grew up? Like grammar school, high school kind of thing?
The whole thing. It was a great Italian immigrant town.
Is that where you are, Italian?
No, I'm Polish.
Oh, you're Polish?
Polish,
okay.
But all the Italians adopted me, so I had some great Sunday meals.
Oh, a lot of meatballs and spaghetti.
A lot
chicken
of
parm.
A lot of sleeping on the couch in between courses.
And we say fried galamad here, right? We don't say fried calamari,
No, you
right?
don't.
For all you folks out there outside of New Jersey, we do say fried galamad. So Berkeley Heights, man, what was it like? What was your younger days? What sports were you into? What was your family?
I had a great family. My mom and dad were really committed to raising a family. So my dad was an attorney in New York.
Oh, wow.
And my mom basically said, not going to happen. You're going to be home every night for dinner. You can go back to the office after that, but you're going to be home for dinner every night. So we ate as a family every night, which I thought was great. Yeah. It was a little bit unusual these days, but
yes.
I got a brother and a sister. I'm the baby of the crew, and Berkeley Heights is it's a boring town as a kid to grow up in, but it's a great town to raise a family.
Safe.
Yeah, it's safe.
Right?
And
everybody knew each other's business.
Yeah, you left your doors unlocked.
Yeah.
Everyone knew each other. You played with your neighbors. You did everything. It was great.
Awesome. And what high school did you go to?
I went to a public school called Governor Livingston.
Okay.
Governor Livingston.
How was that?
It was great. I mean, it's small.
Same kids from grammar school?
Same kids. You grew up, and every class was the same kids. You knew everybody since they were 3. So.
Wow. So you still have any of those roots, those connections?
I got a lot of those roots. I got a lot of those friends.
Yeah.
We're just a lot older. So.
That's an interesting point because I grew up in Bayonne, right? So some of my very best friends to this day are the kids that I spent time in the schoolyard with. So when you and I both live in the same area, how is it for you growing up where you grew up, knowing where we live now and different relationships? How does that operate in your system? Well, for me, I'm more of a guarded person, right? Until the shell goes down, then I'll open up and have a lot of fun. I'm not saying that was you, but I know that was me just because of my roots. Did you notice that about anything?
I did. It's interesting since we lived in New York City for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
New York was a lot more similar to a small town in New Jersey than you'd think. And it's primarily because in New York, as a parent, you couldn't let your kid go do anything by themselves. So you had to spend all the time with them, right?
Yeah.
You can't just open up the back door and let them go run around.
Now, you as a child lived there, or you as a parent?
As a parent.
Okay, got it.
As a parent. So we were there until my oldest was 11.
Wow.
So we've lived here for 9 years now. But before that, we lived in the city the whole time. And then, you would grow up. When I was growing up, we had a 1,700 square foot house.
Yeah.
So you were on top of each other.
Yep.
And it's the same thing in New York.
Yeah.
Right. So there was one television and you had to figure out what the whole family was going to watch.
Yes.
So it's a lot different than here. So, that transition from a small town in New Jersey to college and then to New York City was a good transition for me to get to here. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. Where did you go to college?
I went to Vanderbilt University.
Okay.
I played football at Vanderbilt.
Did you really? What position?
I actually sat at Vanderbilt.
But what were you?
So I was a slot and a place kicker.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Even if you told me that, I don't remember, so I apologize.
No worries.
Yeah.
I probably did. But I sat.
Dude,
it was a great experience.
Were you a good high school player? Like
No.
in the area?
No, I mean,
Was your team good?
we were terrible. We were absolutely terrible. But I walked on and just tried to be a place kicker. I was an all-state soccer player.
Oh, you were?
And so I walked on and just tried to kick and just thought it would be fun to do. And, to me, I saw my opportunity. My head coach at the time, after my freshman year, he left. And the second coach was a guy named Jerry DiNardo. And he was a New York guy.
Yeah.
And so his dad used to come to practice every day. And his dad and our basketball coach's dad, a guy named Eddie Fogler, they were both cab drivers in New York City.
Eddie Fogler.
He then went to South Carolina, and he had a pretty good career. He was at Wichita State prior. But
his name's so familiar to me.
Yeah, he was a really good coach, really good. And Jerry went on to coach at LSU and Indiana and some other places. But their dads were always on the sideline, so I just started talking to their dads.
And this is during high school?
No, this was during college.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure that the only reason why I was still on the team is because both their dads liked me. Okay. And I entertained their dad during practice.
So you learned influence and proximity at a very young age.
An opportunity.
Yeah, tremendous.
Yeah.
For all you entrepreneurs out there, influence with integrity, proximity is power. We learned that through the process of really understanding if somebody has what you want and if somebody is proven in what you're trying to get, you could turn decades into days by standing on their shoulders, doing what they did and add 10%, right? Do what they did and add 10%. So what Jordan just shared, which I think is really cool, thank you for that, is, all-state soccer player, not an easy thing in New Jersey, goes to college and becomes a place kicker. During that time, he created good relationships with people that genuinely liked him. So likability is another tool of influence. And at the end of the day, because of influence proximity, he was able to, and entertainment, good communicator, right? So even if you're not comfortable communicating, sit in a mirror, read something out loud, watch yourself as you're reading something out loud, get it in your nervous system. It'll really help you to be able to articulate that in other parts of your life. But with that being said, I'm hearing Jordan just talk about his journey, which is amazing. So did you play 4 years?
Played 3 years.
Okay.
I sat 3 years.
Okay.
Is a better way to put it.
But you traveled and you were on the team and everything?
Made some great relationships.
Really?
Yep.
That is so awesome. Just think about like somebody that knew they were going to be sitting, right? Wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves, understood that there was something after this, right? Like, I'm sure that's why you did it. I wasn't in that mindset when I was in college. I was just trying to figure out how to play Nintendo. Just so double dribble, if anyone remembers that back in the early 90s. I was pretty good at it.
I was an RBI baseball guy.
Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah. I was good in double dribble.
I was an RBI baseball
guy. And what was the other one, the football one?
Tecmo Bowl.
Yes.
Tecmo Bowl.
I used to win with the
was unstoppable.
So was Walter Payton.
Yes.
And the 49ers were the best team.
But the 87 Cardinals and the 87 Royals couldn't
be beat in
RBI baseball.
That's awesome. So so you're in the city. Were you there during 9/11?
I was there during 9/11. Yeah, I was coming back with a friend from Denver the night before, Monday night.
Giants.
At Invesco Field.
Yeah.
Invesco Field was just opening up, so it was the Giants Broncos.
Yep.
And we took a red eye on the JetBlue, which was relatively new airline at the time.
Yep.
So we landed at JFK.
Wow.
At around 7:30.
Whoa.
We got in my buddy's car, and we were driving back in. And
to go to
back home.
So you weren't even going to work. You were just going back.
We were probably going to go home, shower. I don't even remember what exactly we were going to shower and then go to work.
Yeah. What were you doing at that point in your life? What was your career?
I had my own agency at the time, sports agency.
Okay, we'll get into that. Yep.
And so we were driving in, and I looked up, and I saw some smoke coming out of the Twin Towers. And I said to my buddy, the Twin Towers are on fire.
Yeah.
And he's like, shut up, Jordan. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
I remember that.
And so I said, look, and we were one of the last cars to get through the tunnel back into the city.
Before they shut it down.
And really, in a sad, his best friend was in the Twin Towers. And he knew right off the bat that his friend was in trouble.
Yeah.
And he kept on trying to call, couldn't get the kid.
Yeah.
And he dropped me off. He went down, and unfortunately, his friend had passed. But
yeah.
We went back to my apartment. My wife was working at the time, she was working at AOL Time Warner, and she walked home, and she brought one of her coworkers home. And her coworker's sister worked in the Twin Towers, and we watched the towers go down. So we had a woman that actually thought she was watching her sister die
Yeah.
right in front of us. And it was a moment I'll never forget.
Yeah.
Just makes you not take anything for granted.
That's right. That's right. And did you have a child at that point?
We did not have a child at the
Okay.
time.
So you were married, but you were just
Married,
starting. Got
just
it.
started.
So you said something, and thank you for sharing that story, by the way. You said something interesting about, you had a sports agency company that you owned. So, I've never interviewed a sports agent, so this is really cool. I'm having fun right now. I hope everybody else is too, by the way. How did that start? Listen, you were at Vanderbilt, right? How does somebody become a sports agent? That's that's really cool to me.
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of probably, it's a lot of cliche, right? It's about putting yourself in a position to succeed.
Yep.
Right. And it's about going that extra mile, creating your own luck, whatever cliches you can think of. That's basically what the sports industry is. So throughout my high school and collegiate career, I always interned. And
Did you know you wanted to do this, though?
I knew it from the beginning.
So you knew you wanted to represent athletes.
I took a journey even on that path, right?
Okay.
Because what I didn't realize that there were so many opportunities within sports.
Yep.
I always thought it was you just become a player agent and that's what you could do. As I did internships, one of the interesting things for me was to learn about what I did like and didn't like and all the other opportunities there were. There's thousands of different careers within sports that you can go.
Yeah.
And it was really important for me to understand what I was good at and what I enjoyed. So when it was time for me to really make a run at it, I had already kind of decided the general direction that I wanted to go in.
Best use of your time.
Best use of my time, best use of opportunity,
Yeah.
less risk. But also it created relationships that then helped me later in life. And that's, I think, what everything's about, is about trust and relationships.
Yeah, to that point, relationship capital, we talk about relationship capital all the time. And to the degree that you maximize your relationship capital with integrity, right? Things change, people change, times change. Sometimes, in that relationship, there may not be the opportunity, but 3 or 4 years later, it could just show up at the front door, right? So it's about not burning bridges and being genuine and creating good relationships. All right, so now you're figuring out how to become a sports agent. You took the path that you felt that was let's call it safer but accelerated. And what did that look like?
So I did a lot of internships, and then I went to law school at the University of Miami. So
Awesome.
Between my first and second year, I interned at a small company in New Jersey, a startup sports marketing agency, and just worked my ass off. I mean, just got in at 7, left at 10 every night. Even if I didn't have anything to do, I was just there in case there was needed something to be done. And at the end of the summer, they offered me a job for a whopping $12,500.
What year was this?
This was 1995, maybe.
Wow.
1995. Okay. And I just knew that's what I wanted to do.
You loved it.
I loved it, and I was blessed that I was able to do it. I had an accident when I was younger, so I had a little bit of a nest egg through that. And I just said, you know what, if I'm going to invest, I'm going to invest in myself.
Yeah.
And I just took the shot and I did it. And
you took that job.
I took that job.
Yeah.
I decided not to go back to law school. And I just said, this is why I'm going to law school, to get this opportunity.
Yep.
And I just went for it.
Wow.
And that's how it began.
And listen, 7 in the morning, 9, 10 at night, I totally get those hours. I understand that it's last man standings, burning the boat, taking over the island. Awesome. People see that and they watch your actions louder than your words. And as you know, action is, the biggest indicator or dictator of what's going to happen next predictably, right? Mm-hmm. As long as there's intentionality and congruency. With that being said, what does it look like after that? You now, you put your flag down, right? Yeah. Young kid, it's figuring out what to do next.
I mean, there was a lot of learning to be done, right? And so I was, once again, it's about getting in the right position. Yeah. And so my initial boss is a guy named Frank Vuno, and he was incredibly talented, incredibly smart, tough boss. I mean, he was no nonsense. He was like old school dad, you know, 6'5", the meat cleavers for hands. And I sat at his desk the whole day, and I would do everything from picking up his daughter at kindergarten, to, sitting on meetings talking about the acquisition of NBA teams. Wow. But I just knew that if I put who knew who I was going to meet doing those errands, I mean, I think one of the greatest things that ever happened to me is he was working and I was assisting. I mean, I was basically a secretary at the time.
Yep.
And
just stay with us, folks, and watch where this story goes.
He was working on the acquisition of the Toronto Raptors for a client named Isaiah Thomas. And it was before cell phones, really, right? You're still in the
He
day.
probably had that big,
He had the big car phone. Yeah, had the big car phone. And the faxes curly-cued and all that. And probably a lot of people don't know what that means.
Oh, boy.
And you had to go to microfiche at the library
I remember
instead
the
of
microfiche, yes.
Google, et cetera.
When I was cold calling on Wall Street, it was microfiche.
Yeah, it was microfiche. So he would every day give me a list of answers for questions and then a list of questions for Isaiah. And Isaiah would go to his game, he would watch the game, and then after the game, he would call the office. And I was basically, in the beginning, I was just the guy that'd say, okay, Isaiah, the answers to the first 10 questions from last night are these 10 answers.
Yep.
And then here's 3 questions that my boss has for you. And then do you have any questions? And I'll bring them back. And so this happened for 7 months. And
Every day you're on the phone with Isaiah?
every day, every night.
Wow.
And he would call anywhere between 9:30 and 11.
Did he build rapport with you during that time?
And
I'm interested.
Yeah. And so we literally became friends through me just becoming a secretary.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how we built our relationship. And to me, that's always stuck, that no matter what job you're given, you can get something out of it.
So let me ask you a question for all the folks that are watching. Anyone that's older than 40 may know that Isaiah Thomas is one of the greatest point guards in NBA history, 2-time NBA champ, won an NCAA championship as a freshman at Indiana, went to the NBA right after that, once scored 16 points against the Knicks in like a minute and a half against him and Kelly Tripucka from New Jersey as well.
Yep.
Can you call Isaiah right now and say hello?
Yeah, probably.
See, relationship capital. That's what I'm talking about. Relationship capital. Jordan, in his own words, ego subjugation, right?
Yep.
You know, what did you know at such an early age, the importance of head down work and ego subjugation? Must have been taught by your dad and your mom.
My mom and dad.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where everything, I mean, the family is so important, right? The
So impressed.
I think that's something, and I know this probably is not the popular thing to say today, but this generation, we failed as parents. We failed this generation because I think the greatest thing a parent can teach a child is a response to failure. And we don't let our children fail. And so then you know, everything's about participation and celebration. Someone yesterday said to me, it's like cheering for a fish to swim, right? Like, all right, well, you got to figure it out, right? So that's what I was taught. Is I came from a very loving home, but a very blunt home.
Yep.
Like, all right, if you're going to fail, that's okay, but what's the response?
Yes. How do you get off the campus?
How do you get off the canvas?
Love it.
And you know, become a little tougher and a little smarter and a little wiser, and you learn what not to do. And if someone's always catching you before you fall, you never learn what not to do or what to do.
Yep.
And so
Well said.
That's what I learned from my parents.
Appreciate that. So, all right. So now Big Frank is, you're answering, you're giving questions, you're creating rapport with Isaiah Thomas.
Yep.
Young age, you're 25 years old on your path, you know, to become a sports agent and, you know, whatever that looks like in the next 10 or 20 years after that. What happens next?
So the next 5 years, the company was on a meteoric rise.
What was the name of the company?
It's called Integrated Sports International, ISI. And there were 3 partners. And the beauty of it is they hired a lot of really good young talent. And they let us do work, real work. Now, you had to do, you know, clerical work too, but you got to do real work. I got to sit in real meetings.
They took your word. They listened to your messaging, and they
would punish you if you're wrong, but they listened, and it was a great experience for me. And they then got purchased by a larger company called SFX.
Okay. So you were there for 5 years. You developed a certain type of rapport culture, system, process, strategy. You get bought out.
They get bought out.
They get bought out. Does that change things for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's how you view anything that you may not view as a positive.
Okay.
Is really.
Okay, so you were already like, everything's happening for a reason. I'm going to learn from this and figure out how I can put myself in the best position.
So they made a good amount of money, and they deserved it, right? Yeah. They started it. They took the risk. They worked their butts off. They didn't share as much as I think, I was probably a little egotistical where I thought they should have shared more with me.
You thought you were getting some Benjamins.
I thought I was going to, and I didn't.
They gave you some Washingtons and not
They didn't
Franklins.
give me anything. So, but I mean, now I've grown wiser,
Yeah.
et cetera. You know what? They took the chance, not
Yeah.
me. And I think it really was one of the great things that happened to me later in life. And at the time, I didn't really know what I was going to do.
Yeah.
Right. And I was disappointed. And I'm always one of those people that just says, like, I can't get down. You can't be that person that complains.
Yeah.
And so one of the other gentlemen, SFX was basically aggregating a bunch of companies.
Yep.
And consolidating the sports industry. So there was a gentleman named Kenny Dichter, who's one of my mentors to this day, who's a serial entrepreneur, maybe the greatest entrepreneur I know.
Wow.
He's
incredible.
He's started a bunch of companies that have been really successful, purchased, and he's now running a company called Wheels Up, which is a private aviation company.
Wheels Up.
Wheels Up.
Yeah, I know about them.
So Kenny, that's one of the companies he started. So he was coming in, and a mutual friend said to Kenny, he was coming in to talk to my boss at the time.
Yeah.
And a mutual friend said, Kenny, do me a favor. There's this young kid. After you talk to his boss, would you spend a half an hour, maybe take him for a cup of coffee and just kind of give him some words of advice?
So this was you.
This was me.
Yeah, someone looking out for you.
Yeah, someone looking out. So Kenny was going to come in and maybe didn't have the greatest conversation with my boss, right?
Okay.
And so Kenny was walking out and just decided, you know what? I just want to get back to my office and et cetera. Would you mind if I didn't do it? And I was like, no, Kenny, I appreciate it. He goes, if you ever need anything, give me a shout.
Okay.
So little did he realize that I was thinking about leaving.
Okay.
And a couple of my clients had approached me about leaving at the time with a partner of mine.
Now, does that in your business, does that happen often? Because I know, like, people always like where clients are, you have to move with your clients. Is there an NDA? Like, what does all that look like?
There's a lot of non-competes, et cetera.
Okay.
At the time, I was pretty low level, so
Yeah.
in their mind. And also because the clients initiated it rather than me initiating it.
Understood. Yep.
So Kenny kind of did the throwaway line. And
The takeaway close?
The takeaway close. And I said, so the next day I call him. I said, Kenny, I don't even know if you remember meeting me.
Yeah.
But you said if I ever need anything to call you, well, I need something.
Yeah.
I'm about to start my own company. I have no clue what I'm doing. I had one partner, and we had 3 clients. And he's like, come on in. He goes, we just started another company, and we have an extra cube, and you can go work out of that cube. And Kenny and I talk about it all the time. We were just laughing about it last week. He gave my partner and I 1 cube each. And 3 months later, we had 9 people running around the office, racking up $1,000 a month FedEx bill. And,
awesome.
To Kenny's credit,
and you were in the city at this point?
At the city.
Okay, got it.
Yep. To Kenny's credit, he really supported me. He really mentored me.
So wait, hold on. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
What was it about you that, I think we all know, like, just as we're going on this journey together, but he took a liking with, right? I mean, he obviously liked you, he mentored you, he coached you. What was it about that he did that?
Well, I think number one is I asked.
Okay.
Right? A lot of people, I say this to my clients all the time when they're doing job interviews. Like, you got to ask for the job.
Yeah.
You got to tell them you want the job.
Yeah.
Right? They might not know that. Right?
Yeah.
Or if you don't, then it's not their job to read your mind. They're doing you the favor.
Yeah.
So first of all, I asked.
Yeah.
Second of all,
I'm sure he saw your work ethic.
he saw my work ethic, which, and I think I got good references from common people.
Your reputation preceded it.
Yep.
Understood.
And I was also humble coming to him. I realized who he was compared to who I was.
Yeah.
And so if he said, I can meet you at this time, whatever time he said, I said yes.
Yeah.
And
be there 15 minutes early.
be there 15 minutes, show him respect, do the work beforehand.
Wow.
One of the things that he taught me in that first meeting is I came in prepared, asking for what I wanted instead of making him do the work.
Yes.
And then he could say, yes, I can do that for you. I can't do that for you.
Yes.
So I think all those type of things, and I also was committed to making a mutually beneficial relationship. I wanted to help him. In the beginning, it was probably a little naive to think I could help him,
Yeah.
but he saw the effort was there. And now to this day, I do as much business with him as I possibly can because
Amazing.
he remembered me when I was couldn't help him.
Wow. So you start your own thing. You and another partner, you have 3 clients. Within 6 months, there's a 9-member team with $1,000 FedEx bill, right?
Yeah.
So what does it look like next? And by the way, I want to just take a step to the left a little bit. How did you meet your wife? How many kids do you have at this point? Because for all the folks that are out there, we believe in balance, entrepreneurs, family first, right? What does your family life look like? How many children do you have? What is the commitment to the family? I see Jordan from a distance, and I could tell, he's the kind of guy that I would love or hit my kids to surround myself with his kids, just based on what I see from our relationship. What did all that look like? And I know for me, and I'm assuming the same thing with you, my wife supported me big time on the, as we're building up this stuff, and I'm sure
I think
I'm a family business kind of thing.
I'm a lot better father than I was husband.
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt. I think I'm a really good father. I'll put it that way, right? I think what I didn't know early on is that entrepreneurs can be selfish sometimes about what they put into their job versus everything else. And it took children for me to kind of get shook a little bit. Like,
thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
that's awesome. What happened early on that?
I mean, I was just early on in the relationship, I just told her, like, hey, this is who I am, and if you're into it, great. If not,
No, I mean, like, once the kids came on, like, what was?
I think it's just you as a dad, when you hold that kid, or when they look at you and they view you in a certain way, it's moving. There's something to it. And being a father is the greatest blessing, I've ever had in my life. And I cherish it, and I'm getting better at it. Right? And I'm enjoying it more, and probably a little bit too late. I've missed early on, but, my health and my family's health has been great through this whole pandemic. So I tend to look at the positive, since I haven't had some of the difficulties that others have had, which, are terrible things. But for us, it's been great for my family, because we spent a lot more time in the last 2 years together than we ever have.
It's amazing. And thanks for sharing that, by the way. COVID, I've told people this, that it really brought me to a better understanding of my wife as well as my children. But it really, spending that extra time, it came out of nowhere, unexpected. All of a sudden, like, you're with your family. So it's been, for me, when it came as a dad to my children, it really helped me kind of reshift their sports, right? And take a look at, my wife is good with the grades at school, and she's really on point with all that stuff. But being able to spend that time with them really kind of helped me be able to get a message to them that kind of put them to where at least they are right now, from the space of understanding what has to be done next. So awesome, Jordan. So now, like, listen, you're growing your business, and what was the name of the company that you started with your partner?
Well, we had a couple of different names. We started off as Goal Marketing, Goal, and it was a terrible name, but we needed to come up with a name in like the first 6 hours. We needed to incorporate. So we had our first 3 clients. That then evolved into the agency Sports Management, and then we took some non-strategic investment, and we were able to grow and clean up our cap table, et cetera, and we became the legacy agency. But it was a great, 17-year run.
And you and one partner?
We grew. I mean, we ended up, so it was originally my one partner and I, and we were a great combination because we were completely opposite, right? We totally trusted each other. And he taught me the value of deal making. And I think I taught him the value of relationships. And we really balanced each other really, really well.
Can you share with folks the value of deal making? What that looks like high level?
Well, high level, I think I was always worried about, in the beginning, because I was more of a relationship person, I was more worried about sensitivity and kindness and being friends with someone, where what I took from him is, being a deal maker doesn't mean you can't do it in a respectful manner.
With integrity. It
just means you have to be, I needed to be a little more blunt. And I couldn't dance around it. This is what I want. This is what we want. And I also had to be willing to walk. And I learned to take the risk in a deal, to say, if we don't get what we're going to get, we're going to walk. And he really taught me that. And those are great lessons to learn. And I put my own little, I kind of modified it for me personally, but those were 2 really good lessons he taught me.
Now, these lessons on walking, right, is, you have a client, so you have to, I'm assuming, set the expectation. Right? And what kind of conflicts did that bring up if they thought something was going to go through, it didn't go through? What kind of trials and tribulations?
Well, there's no conflict, right? Because if you communicate properly,
yeah, true.
then here's what your expectations are. Here's what I think I can do.
Yeah.
And if they diverge, then you say, I can't represent you.
Yeah.
Or, you know what, we're not going to be able to do that. How do you want to handle this?
Got it.
Number one. And number two, before every step, you're clearing it with them. This is what our strategy is. So if the strategy goes wrong and they're upset about it, there's nothing you can do.
So your communication was high level. You never assumed anything, one step at a time, clear understanding, everybody being on the same page. Guys, that's gals. That's what business really is. If you understand how to communicate on a high level with integrity, stay on pace with your word, make sure your I dot and T crossing along the way, then what that does, not only does it create a good relationship, obviously they're going to feel better because they're informed at all times, but you're also, you're on top of deletion, dilution, and distortion, because sometimes people just could run off with their thoughts if there's not a centerpiece that's allowing you to take them through a process. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, brother. Yeah. How does somebody, as a sports agent, you're getting your reputation, begin to acquire clients? And who was your avatar client back then?
So our first clients were my partner was in the golf space.
Okay.
And so when he first started, he recruited a guy named Jim Furyk.
Oh, wow.
And no one else in the company wanted to help him. And I had been on the sales side, and so the thing I had noticed that most of the people I was calling on loved the golf.
Yeah.
So I said, I don't really know much about the golf business, but I'll help you, because if this guy's any good, then I can use it for my sales.
Got it.
Right? Because then I can talk about my golfer and use that as a connector, a uniter. And so we went and recruited Jim Furyk. We went into a phone book and called his dad, found his dad's name in Lancaster. We went up and set up a meeting with him without any passes or badges. And Jim was great and is great. And so Jim was one of our clients.
How old was he at that time?
At the time when we recruited him, was 24, 25 years old.
Was his dad part of the process? Or
Dad was not only a part of the process, but is still a critical part of the team.
Is that often when you're dealing with athletes?
Sometimes, but the difference is that Mike and Jim have a great relationship.
Got it.
And they respect each other. And Mike really has Jim's best interests in mind.
Got it.
So he really puts Jim first, even if it benefits him in a different way. If it doesn't benefit Jim, Mike is great about that.
It's making me have a lot of questions. So first of all, that was was that a celebratory, that's our first client that you could build off of kind of thing?
So Jim, obviously was a great, unbelievable. Our first three clients were Isaiah, who maintained
Relationship. Yep.
Jim Furyk and Troy Aikman.
Oh, Troy Aikman.
Yeah.
Were you like Lee Steinberg is Troy's agent in the
So when I took over, Troy had just retired.
Yeah.
So I ended
He
up,
wanted the hug from Jerry Maguire, right?
Yeah. Yep. And
this is so cool right now. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
so I ended up becoming Troy's marketing and broadcast agent, because he was no longer playing. So I did his broadcasting. God. And so Troy's been a client until 3 weeks ago when I resigned.
Did you let everybody know?
I let everyone know.
Okay.
So Troy was a client for the last 25 years.
And this was for the company that you started with 17 years ago, or
that was 17, and then I was at another agency after 17 years. No, I went and decided it was time to move on.
Okay, but you brought your clients, I'm assuming.
I brought my clients.
Okay, got it.
And I went to a company called WME IMG.
Got it.
So I ran the sports group for them.
And this was for how many years?
6. I ran the sports group. We created the sports group 3.5 years ago, and I ran the sports group. I was a co-partner of the sports group for the last 3.5 years.
Got it. So wait, let's go back though.
Okay.
I love this Troy Aikman thing is amazing.
Yeah.
So first of all, how is Troy like as a client to work with?
Troy is probably one of my top 3 friends in the world.
Really?
So he's unbelievable to work with, because there's there's pure clarity about what his expectations are.
Yeah. And he's still well liked as a broadcaster.
He's probably, I think he's the best.
He's better than Tony. Yeah, no doubt about it.
I think he's the best broadcaster.
Yeah, that's amazing. So so when you see him and Joe, and I don't expect you to tell me either way, but does he have a good working relationship with Joe Buck? Because they sound like they really,
they have a great. They're completely different personalities, but not only do they have a great working relationship, I would say they're really, really good friends too.
So you've come across some athletes that are high level athletes. Now we're talking generational quarterbacks, Troy Aikman. We're talking generational point guards, Isaiah Thomas, Jim Furyk is a golfer as well, right? Amazing.
Hall of Famer. Yep.
When we look at common denominators, right? And you look at the folks that, they were great in their sport, but as a business person, because it sounds like these are good businessmen.
Really good.
What is it that stands out the most? Someone that could leave their sport, right, and then be able to do other things outside of their sport as a businessman.
Well, I think the people that are successful in both have the work ethic.
Okay.
Right? I mean, there's some athletes that are just great athletes.
Yep.
And their time for being a great athlete is shorter than someone that puts the work into it, right?
Fair enough.
All three of those had unbelievable careers, not only because of the talent they had, they all were really, really smart. They're all really smart, mentally tough, and they have an incredible work ethic. Those three have very similar traits, even though their personalities are very different.
Do they surround themselves with like mastermind groups, or how do they find out what to do next? Who's their?
They're all different.
I guess their circle of influence.
They're all different. I mean, there's no common trait about who they surround themselves with. But.
So do people come to you with ideas to share with them, or how does it work? Where
both? I mean, it's a two-way street, but there's a variety of different things that they do, right? So from a contract standpoint, when we do their contracts, it's pretty much ourselves and maybe their financial advisors, maybe their tax advisors. From a business standpoint, in the last 5 to 10 years, it's been really popular for athletes and entertainers to do talent venture. It all really kind of started with, there's a lot of other examples beyond this, but it all started with the, what was it called? The vitamin water.
Okay.
With David Wright and 50 Cent, and they made a ton of money for that. But that's really become, even today that we're talking, Troy's launching a beer company.
Awesome.
That's focused on Texas, and it's the lightest calorie and lightest carb that there is in the marketplace. But these are the type of things they do. That's probably the most popular thing there is for high-level athletes right now.
What about marketing in social media? Do they have stuff like that that's all lined up for them? Because I know that's a home run, from some of the stuff I see.
It's a home run for them. Most of them have teams around it.
Now, are you part of that, though?
So they're part of our group.
Got it.
That's what I was. We have a social media team.
Really? Uh-oh. They have a social media team, Dan. You better watch out. I'm always teasing them.
Yeah.
So that's part of everything that you put together. That's amazing. Wow. So now, for all the folks that are out there, you're going through a major transition, correct?
Yep.
And by the time they see this, it already would have happened.
Yep.
Do you want to share what that looks like and what your new role is, and how does that impact your current relationships or your relationships with your clients that you had for the last 25 years?
So in between my company, I went to work for the company called WME IMG.
Yep.
And we're probably the largest entertainment company. They own, now I should say they instead of we. They own UFC. We purchased UFC. We bought IMG Academy.
Wow.
They own the professional bull riders. They own a variety of different things.
Yep.
Multi-billion-dollar company. They just went public this summer. And there I created I was co-partners as the head of the sports group. So we went out and built a football contract division, a baseball contract division, a basketball contract division. Golf and tennis are already through IMG, and a variety of broadcasters, coaches. So if you look at across the board, we were pretty much elite. On the football side, they represent Aaron Donald, Joe Burrow, the Bosa brothers, Justin Jefferson, Zach Wilson. That level of player. On the basketball side, they, this year they had Scotty Barnes, who's an unbelievable player, and they have Luka Doncic, et cetera.
I was going to ask you about
On the coaches side, we represented my partner and I. Probably represented 45% of the coaches in the NCAA tournament this past year.
Really?
We represented half of the guys in the Sweet 16, 75% of the guys in the Final Four. And
so that's that was one of your avatars, because I saw something about Rick Pitino when I was looking online. Yeah. Was he a friend of yours?
So I represented his son.
Okay.
And so it was interesting. I was recruiting his son, Richard, and it came down to it. And Richard was going to go with me at the time. He was at the University of Minnesota. He never had an agent. And so he's like, hey, listen, do me a favor. And it doesn't matter, I'm going with you, but could you do me a favor and just go meet with my dad?
Okay.
Right? Just so I don't have to listen to it. So I went down and his...
Big fan of Rick Pitino. Just so you know, like I love his coaching style.
Oh, I think he may be the best coach in the country.
Yeah, look what he did. You know,
he's unbelievable. And he's really the one that created the whole 3-point concept. Right?
Yes. So, wow. So how was his energy?
Unbelievable. It's magnetic.
Yeah.
I wasn't even recruiting him. I was just going to hang out with him so that I could tell Richard that I did it. The next day, Richard calls me and he's apologizing. And I'm saying, what are you apologizing for? He goes, you haven't seen ESPN.com yet, have you? And I said, no. And he said, check it out. And then call me back. So I looked at it, and Rick said that he hired an agent named Jordan Bazant. And I was like, so that's how I got to meet Rick. And he's, an unbelievable coach.
So after he told you he hired you, did you say yes?
Yeah, I helped him because of Richard, but he's gone on and Rick doesn't even need help. He's gone on and did it himself. But the college basketball space was one of my early entries, and we represented both Hurleys,
really,
both Danny and Bobby.
Awesome.
So I represented.
Did you spend time with them, you personally?
Maybe. Oh yeah, a ton.
Awesome. So Make sure you tell him that you saw me.
I was just texting with Danny now about the Bengals because he's a huge Bengals
Yes,
fan.
he is. This big, he was running around with the Bengals when they lost to the 49ers in 81.
So he's done an unbelievable. So I represented Danny all the way back since he was at Wagner, and then obviously a couple weeks ago, I let him know that I'm not going to be doing it anymore. And it was an emotional. We've had some great times and some pretty blunt conversations.
Yeah, he keeps these real.
Yeah, he keeps it real.
He's real.
And
so you told him you were sitting with me today?
I have not told him.
Oh, please do.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So you had to let everybody know.
Mm-hmm.
And the announcement is?
So I'm going to work as the executive vice president of Fox Sports.
Wow.
Yeah.
Executive vice president of Fox Sports. Let that sink in. So what does that mean going forward? You had shared something. I don't want to share. I'd rather you share it.
So there's a couple of buckets there. I've known the president of Fox Sports, a guy named Eric Shanks, for a long, long time. And he's a dear friend, and we've always talked about working together.
Were they recruiting you for?
No, he always just said, hey, if the opportunity comes, let's try and figure out if you're ever open to it and if we have an opportunity. And
wow,
a couple of months ago, that opportunity came up, and so we've had some distinct conversations, and there's going to be different areas of the business, and it's going to be some talent negotiation, just negotiating with their current talent and strategy. Two, it'd be their media rights with NFL or Major League Baseball or NASCAR, the Big Ten or the Big East or the World Cup or UEFA, et cetera, leading those negotiations, but then also developing and strengthening those relationships during those contracts. And then a third part is kind of a business development. They're looking at creating new revenue streams. They've just created the USFL. Are there other ideas like that we can take an ownership and equity stakes in?
So what happens with your current clients? Did you hand them off to somebody? Like what is that?
Well, it's a personal relationship, right? So you can't it's not like a widget where you can say, hey, here you go.
Yeah.
But what I've done is I've shared with them, if they ask, like who I think the best in the business are. And, for the majority of that's people that I brought in or hired, et cetera. And if that personalities match, then I'm really encouraging them to stay within.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what does it look like now where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Learning.
So you're back to being a student again, but just on a higher base camp. It sounds like.
And this is a totally different, once again, it gets back to that there's different parts of the business.
Yeah.
And now
because you said there's 1,000.
There's 1,000. I'm not in representation anymore.
Yep.
Now I'm a media executive.
Wow.
So I have to learn that whole business, and it's going to be humbling and exciting. I'm going to be learning. I can learn something from everybody in that building that everyone in that building knows infinitely more than I do now.
So you live in New Jersey, right?
In New Jersey.
And the main office is in California, LA?
The corporate headquarters are in New York.
Okay.
Sports headquarters are in LA.
So what does that look like for you as a commuter?
I'm going to commute for the first 9 months and then just see how it goes. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Is there a chance you're moving out to LA and we don't know it yet and we're finding out right now?
No, I'm going to spend a lot of time for the next 9 months out there, but
okay.
My goal is to stay in the East Coast.
Awesome.
Yep.
So listen, dude, thank you so much.
Yep.
Awesome interview. Tremendous accomplishments. So many different takeaways for everybody that's watching. relationship capital, hard work, ego subjugation, building out these relationships that move on to different stages of life, different base cap increases and different models along the way, and then taking on new opportunities and taking on new challenges, all while being a dad married with 3 kids, building out some beautiful synergies all over the place. When it's all said and done, 20, 30, 40 years, what do you want the message to be about who you are and your impact?
A dad of 3 kids.
Awesome. Well, there it is, everybody. Jordan Bazant.
Thank you.
Jordan Bazant. One of the best interviews I've ever had, sports agent into now an executive at Fox Sports, taking that next step forward. Thank you. And by the way, by the time you see this video, it would already have been announced, right? So it's not announced yet.
Not announced yet.
At least as of today. So by the time you see this, it'll be announced. And brother, thank you so much, man.
Thanks.
Awesome
Really appreciate
job.
it.
Yes.